Hello everyone, it's me Uncle John. Today I am going to read S6 6063, Chapter 4. What do we do? Ralphie shouted. There is no way we can fly out of here in this storm. I looked at Miss Frizzle. She had to do something, and she did. She pointed her remote control at the magic school helicopter and pressed the red button. Seconds later, the copter magically turned into a huge yellow river raft. Climb into the raft. The Merida screamed, trying to make herself heard over the roar of the rushing water. And put on your life jacket. We scrambled into that raft faster than mules took off up Bright Angel Trail. And not a second too soon, the roar of the water coming down the canyon was getting louder and louder. Then, in a flash, it shot around a bend of the canyon, straight at us. Hang on, Miss Frizzle called. Here it comes. 1 second we're on the canyon ledge. The next second we're zooming down the canyon on the top of a crest of water. Awesome, I yelled. This is one grand ride. A big yellow magic school raft bounced up and down on the rushing water. The colorful walls of the canyon flashed by us. Help, Arnold yelled. I got water up my nose. We're lucky we don't all have water up to our ears. Morita said, just hang on tight, we're coming to some big rapids. I was sitting at the front of the raft, so I was the first to see them. White water, I yelled. A minute later, we were in the rapids. Everybody screamed at the same time. It was a wild ride. Riding the rapids felt like riding a bucking bronco. I just had to make sure I didn't fall off. The magic school raft that bobbed up and down through the rapids. I turned around to see how everyone was doing. Arnold was green. The rest of the kids had eyes the size of saucers and was screaming. But Miss Frizzle had a huge grin on her face. Hey, Carlos, how much fun is this? It's a whole raft of fun, I called back. Everyone stopped screaming just long enough to groan at my joke. Seriously, it was a rush. The flash flood carried us on down the canyon. Finally, the river widened and the water became calmer. At the same time, the rain stopped and the sun came out. Phew, I'm glad that's over, the Merida said. I checked the weather report before we left, and it didn't say anything about a storm. Usually, you get a little warning. It's a good thing we had our magic school raft, Phoebe said. I just wish we had a magic school kitchen. I'm starving. This magic school raft isn't magic for nothing, Miss Frizzle said, opening a cooler strapped to the side of the raft. Peanut butter sandwiches coming up. Peanut butter had never tasted so good. While we ate, Marita explained how the Colorado River created the Grand Canyon. It all started about 65 million years ago. Forces deep in the earth lifted up the land to form the Colorado Plateau. I know what a plateau is, Phoebe said. I wrote my report on it. For millions of years after the plateau was formed, Marita went on, the Colorado River flowed across it, and that created a lot of water power. The river was so powerful, Miss Frizzle, that it carved up a deep canyon through the rock layers that make up the plateau. And over time, it formed the Grand Canyon. How do you really know that the two sides of the canyon were ever together? Maybe they were always separate. Geologists have found proof that they were once together, Marita explained. And the proof is in the stone. If you look at one side of the canyon, and then the other side, the layers match exactly. Cool. Rockhounds are really smart. You sound like a rockhound yourself, Carlos. I suddenly remembered my Bright Angel rock. I hoped I hadn't lost it in the rapids. I felt around in my pocket and pulled it out. This is part of my rock collection. It belonged to my grandfather, and it's the reason we came out here. My mom always called it the Bright Angel Rock. So that's why you wanted to go down the Bright Angel Trail, Marita said with a smile. But there is no rock. like that in the Grand Canyon. If there were, all the tourists would be digging for it. What do you mean? I asked. To find your rock, we have to visit a mine. And I think I know just the place. My ancestor worked there, and it has a special name. What's it called? I asked, beginning to get excited. The Bright Angel Mine, Merida said. Chapter 5. An hour later, we were speeding across the desert in the big yellow magic school jeep. The sides of the jeep were open, and we could see everything around us. Jeepers, I said. This is one cool way to get around. Carlos, DA said. Your jokes make you sound like a rockhead, not a rock hound. Hey, look, Tim yelled. What's that animal? We all turned to look at what Tim was pointing to. It was an animal that looked like a cross between a fox and a wolf. It's a coyote, like the Wile E. Coyote in the cartoons. And look ahead, Marita said. There's a roadrunner. We all laughed at the funny bird speeding along on its long legs. How far is it to the Bright Angel Mine? I asked, eager to find out where my rock came from. We won't be there for a few hours, Marita said, but there are plenty of interesting rocks to see along the way. Like those? Ralphie asked, pointing to some big red rock sticking up out of the flat desert. What are they? I know. I wrote a report on the buttes and mesas. Very good, Keisha, Miss Frizzle said. When we get back to school, maybe you can make some buttes and mesas out of clay. I could try. But they won't be as beautiful as Mother Nature's, Keisha said. She was probably right about that. The desert was full of amazing colors and shapes. There were red rock arches and tall rocks sculpted by the wind and water into all kinds of shapes. I'm doing my report on geos, Dorothy Ann said. Do you think we could find any out here? Miss Frizzle, Marita said. When we get beyond the big butte up ahead, turn to the left. There's a place where my uncle used to take me geode hunting as a kid. A few minutes later, the jeep pulled up to a spot behind the big butte. We all followed Marita as she jumped out of the jeep and headed to a big rock surrounded by what looked like a rubble. I don't see any geodes, Ralphie said, picking up a brown rock. These are just plain old rocks. Marita took the rock from his hands and examined it. What do you think, DA? DA pulled the rock hound hammer from her knapsack. She put the rock, flat piece of stone, and hit it hard with the hammer. Gee, a geode, Ralphie yelled. DA picked up both halves of her geode. Inside were circles of different colored crystals. That one is a beauty, Marita said. See what else you can find, kids. While we all went geode hunting, DA shared her report. We put our crystal balls into our knapsacks and climbed back into the jeep. Where are we going next? I asked. To Bright Angel Mine. You'll have to be patient a little while longer, Carlos, Miss Frizzle said. There's something else we have to see, but you will enjoy our next stop, Marita said. It's petrifying. Petrifying? We all shouted together. I don't want to be petrified. I was scared enough on that mule, and then there was the crazy raft ride. Can we just go home? Don't worry, Arnold, Miss Frizzle said. You won't get petrified. It takes millions of years. We had no idea what the freeze was talking about, but we soon found out. We came upon huge fallen trees that stretched out across the sand. The freeze stopped the jeep for us to get out and take a closer look. Hey, these aren't real trees. They are hard as rock. They used to be trees, Miss Frizzle explained, but now they are stone. They are called petrified wood. It's a kind of fossil. Oh, Arnold said with relief. That's not too scary. Now, can we go to Bright Angel Mine? I asked. Miss Frizzle and Marita looked at each other. Twinkle came into the Freeze's eyes. Who wants to see where all the Native Americans lived? She asked. We can't get there fast in the magic school jet. Let's take off, Tim said. Everybody cheered. No sooner had we all piled back into the magic school jeep than it turned into a plane and taxied across the desert. Minutes later, we were soaring above the buttes and mesas that looked like a little clay sculpture below us. The plane zoomed along until suddenly we saw something amazing below us. There was a whole city built out of rock. Is that Mesa Verde? D.A. asked in an excited voice. Yes. Wait until you see the amazing homes the Anasazi people built into the cliffs. The freeze buzzed the plane close to the cliff dwelling built by the Anasazi. Marita told us the story of the people who had lived there, cliff dwellers. Now, can we go to Bright Angel Mine? I asked. I'm itching to find out more about my rock. I think it's time to visit my Uncle Mika. Marita said he can take us there. Miss Frizzle, we are heading back west. The Fritz lifted the plane higher up into the sky. Soon we were winging our way across the desert. Chapter 6. Magic School Jet taxied to a stop in the desert. The Merida was the first one off the plane. She looked really excited. Hurry up, kids, she said. The trading post closes soon. I don't want to miss my uncle. Up ahead, I saw an awesome looking building. The sign above its door read Turquoise Trail, Trading Post. The place looked right out of a Western movie. Where is your rock, Carlos? Miss Frizzle asked. I'll bet Mr. Chi can identify it. I've got it right here, I said. Patting my knapsack, do you think it might be turquoise? No, Carlos, the freeze said. I think you might have an even bigger surprise than turquoise. I was getting more and more curious about my lumpy yellowish rock. What kind of mine was the Bright Angel mine? As we walked up the wooden steps of the trading post, a tall man with gray hair walked out to meet us. The Merida, he called out. Who did you bring to visit me? Merida introduced us to her uncle, Mika Chi. Come on inside, Mr. Chi said. We followed Mr. Chi into the trading post. Most amazing things were on the walls. Navajo blanket, buffalo heads, jewelry and arrowheads and flints. I'm working on some gemstone. Mr. Chi told us I can show you some beauties. Is a gemstone rock? Phoebe asked. Another answer to that, D.A. broke in. Uncle Mika, will you show the kids your workroom? As we followed Mr. Chi into the back room, Marita explained, Uncle Mika is a famous Native American silversmith. Wait till you see his gems. Mr. Chi took us into his workroom. Spread out on a table was semi-precious stones of every shape and color. That's a garnet, Keisha said. My birthstone is a garnet. I spotted an amazing blue stone. Was the color of a deep blue sky. Is this turquoise? I asked Mr. Chi. No, it's an even more valuable stone called lapis lazuli, Mr. Chi said. And do you know how to identify lapis? Shook my head. All of a sudden, I realized that I knew a lot about rocks, but not much about minerals. Here, I'll show you, Mr. Chi said, picking up the lapis lazuli stone. One way to identify mineral or gemstone is called the streak test. Just watch. Color of streak, mineral name. She scratched the stone against the back of a white tile. Sure enough, it left a light blue streak. We spent some time using the streak test on other gemstones. Mr. Chi showed us his crystal collection. It was out of sight. Ralphie had done a report on crystals. Excuse me, Mr. Chi, D.A. said. What are these stones that you said in silver? They are really cool. There's a turquoise stone, Mr. Chi explained. Blue-green color comes from the copper and traces of iron in the stone. Take a look at the different stone. The more iron there is, the greener the stone. Why is the trading post called the Turquoise Trail? Because I know where to find deposits of turquoise in the hills around here. It's a family secret. We won't tell, all of us said at once. Marita gave us a serious look. Can we be sure about family secret? Will we be safe? We'll be as silent as a stone, won't we, kids? Miss Frizzle said. Okay, Uncle Mika. Then keep your secret. Let's go. Mr. Chi smiled and headed to the door, motioning for us to follow. Where are we going? And how are we getting there? I don't know how the Fritz did it, but when we went outside, she was waiting in front of the trading post. And she was sitting on top of the magic school stage coach, drawn by 4 horses. Yippee! Can I sit up on top? Sit up top with you, Miss Frizzle? Before she could say no, I jumped up onto the wooden seat in front of the stagecoach. The rest of the class, along with Mr. Chi and Marita, climbed into the big stagecoach. To giddy up, Miss Frizzle yelled at the horses, and we were off. The horses tore across the desert, pulling the bouncing stagecoach behind them. From inside the stagecoach, I could hear Arnold's voice. I don't want to see any bandits, Arnold was yelling. Get me out of this thing. We drove across the desert for an hour. Finally, Mr. Chi stuck his head out of the stagecoach window. When you see a big red butte standing close to a mesa, steer the horses to the right and rein them in. 10 minutes later, Miss Frizzle pulled the stagecoach up close to the butte. The horses came to a stop in a big cloud of dust. Grab your rock hound tools. You can help collect turquoise from Mr. Chi. I opened my knapsack and checked my tools. Soon we were all chipping and chiseling away at the rocks around us. Jim found a big chunk of turquoise that Mr. Chi said was worth hundreds of dollars. Mr. Chi, it's amazing to see your family is a secret mine. Can I show you a specimen that's part of my family history? I pulled my mystery rock from my pocket and held it out to him. It came from my grandfather. We call it the Bright Angel Rock. Took the rock from my hand, turned it over and over. He pulled the tile from his pocket. Why don't you try the streak test? I couldn't believe it. I don't know why I didn't think to do the streak test myself. Ran the British Angel rock across the back of the white tile and held it up for everyone to see. D.A. gasped. Mr. Chi smiled. The streak was golden yellow. My eyes got wide. Does that mean it's? We headed off to the Bright Angel mine. Are you ready to search for gold? Was I ever? The end.